Hello, my name is Sasha Struthers. I'm an employment and landlord-tenant attorney here in Los Angeles, and today I'm going to do a video about what to do in the event that a tenant is denied the rent relief application either through state application or the LA City application for the 80/20 program. So to kind of briefly go over this, in California, under SB 91, if a tenant has rental arrears or back rent that hasn't been paid from April 2020 through March 2021, a landlord and or a tenant both can apply to seek rental assistance from the state in an 80/20 program, being the state will pay up to 80% of the back rent if the landlord is willing to forgive 20% of the back rent and not file an eviction on it and just say bye to the 20%. For many landlords, that's better than zero. So oftentimes I get clients who obviously want to partake in this program. The caveat is there's some requirements. For LA City, which is everything within the confines of LA City, the tenant has to be at 50% or below median income for LA County. Under the state program, which the rest of Los Angeles would apply under, the tenant has to make 80% or below the median income. So LA City's program was a little more stringent than what the rest of the county would be facing. What I see very often, and kind of what I suspected would be the case, is a lot of tenants didn't pay rent, and they're either in higher end apartments or single family residences, and they didn't pay rent. And I felt like the officials, especially in LA, were a little misleading in telling tenants basically, don't worry, don't pay your rent, your landlord can't do anything, you'll be fine. That's kind of my personal opinion more than I guess a professional one, but I felt it was misleading to tenants because now the rental assistance has come and a lot of people are probably not going to meet it, and the money is probably going to run out. I don't know how they're going to do it. I've heard rumor that it's kind of like a lottery. Some say it's going to be first come first serve. I don't really know, but definitely the money is going to probably get spent before every landlord in LA is able to get something. So that kind of leaves the question, well, like, what happens if the tenant is denied the rental assistance? And keep in mind, again, it only covers April 2020 through March 2021. So March 2020, tenants still got to figure that out. And then April, May, and June of 2021, assuming no further extensions, tenants still have to pay 25% of that rent to avoid eviction. And, all in all, whatever is not forgiven or not paid, in both LA City and LA County, there's going to be a payback period. So the earliest a landlord could, go to small claims, try to collect the back rent one way or another, if there's any left, would be August 2022. So in the event that a tenant or a landlord or both apply and cooperate, and then the decision's rendered, hey, the tenant doesn't qualify for this program and is not going to get the rent relief, then there's still going to be this balance. And I can almost guarantee most tenants did not save money to pay this rent. And if they have to wait, and pay through the payback period, they're going to have to double pay rent, basically, through August 2022. To avoid, having a judgment against them or to pay it back. So what I think is likely going to be the case, there's going to be like 4 potential scenarios. The tenant's going to be denied the rent, and the tenant's going to bail. That's already kind of happened with some people. or they've just up and left. And which also, I should have said this earlier, part of the tenant rental assistance is the tenant still has to be living in the unit. If the tenant moves out, they do not qualify for it, which a lot of people don't understand that. They have to still be in the unit. So if your tenant has already moved out and left and you have possession back, they will not qualify for this money. So they're going to have to pay it back somewhere or another and figure that out on their own. So you will not qualify for this program. But okay, so the 4 options: 1, I think they're just going to up and leave if they get denied. 2, I think some tenants might pay, or they'll stay, they'll pay the minimum required to keep them out of the eviction zone. And then come August 2022, if they haven't paid any of their rental arrears, they're probably going to bail. Because technically the money is not due until August 2022. So I think, or to, end of the payback period, I think it'll be that point, unless things get extended again. So then they'll like wait it out and then just peace out. I think that might happen. Kind of additional to that, I think they will kind of wait it out, but instead of moving out, they'll just stay in the apartment, in their unit in the house. And then they'll just battle it out in small claims court with the landlord. And then, the landlord's going to have to go and try to collect this judgment while the tenant's still living in the premises. And the 4th scenario is, I think tenants and landlords are going to negotiate lease terminations. And this, to me, makes the most sense. If you are a tenant and you haven't paid and you're not going to pay, then it would be prudent for the landlord and the tenant, upon finding out the tenant's not going to get the rental assistance and is not going to have the money to pay, and they're most definitely not going to have the money to pay double rent moving forward, landlords and tenants should probably negotiate a lease termination. That way it's, in writing, both sides know, what's going to happen, what's going to be paid or not paid. The landlord can get possession and the tenant, will move out. And then the tenant can kind of have a clean start with, 1 rent payment a month. Now, what the terms of the lease termination will be, that's, again, negotiable between tenant and landlord. But that, I think, will probably be very common, or be one that I suggest to people, because I facilitate and encourage cooperation at all times between both sides. Does that happen? Not always. My wishful thinking. But in this case, I really think if the tenant is denied the rent relief and realistically cannot pay, it would be smart for the tenant to try to work it out with the landlord. And I have a few tenant clients who've contacted me to kind of try to facilitate that, in good faith, which I'm very proud of those tenants. But that's where I see this kind of going. I hope that, everyone gets the rent assistance if they want it, but it's likely not going to happen, especially for those who are just high income earners, are I don't know the vetting process. I can't quite tell, but I would say someone who's like living in a really nice house and has, like, there's some people that have, around $100,000 in back rent, because, they're renting like a mansion in an exclusive zip code and not paying. So that's rough. That is rough. And I feel very, very bad for the landlords in that situation, because I know there are people taking advantage of the eviction moratoriums. But I will say at the end of this, if, tenants watch this, I would strongly discourage a tenant from trying to dabble in the eviction world. I know that there's protections tenants have, and I know, it's all touted to fight things and do this and do that. But what you really, really don't want is to be a defendant in an eviction, because, you'll likely be an ongoing renter. And unless you bought a house, you'll likely be an ongoing renter for quite a while. And you don't want to have an eviction on your record, because that doesn't look good to any credit agency. Also, sometimes when you Google someone, their name comes up. There's softwares and programs that will vet lawsuits that are being filed online, the dockets. And so even though it's an eviction and it may be sealed, it could potentially be found on the internet through a simple Google search. And so that's what you don't want, is you don't want to get to the place where you're in an eviction as a tenant. It's just not fun, and you don't want that on your credit history or your internet history. So that is kind of my little briefer on what I think is going to happen in the event tenants are denied the rental relief. But above all, I encourage everybody who has rental arrears or has a tenant with rental arrears to most definitely apply for the assistance applicable to you, whether it's city or through the state program, and getting an answer. At least try to apply. Other than that, everybody, good luck. Thank you.